The time has come for people to demand truth, to look into the eyes of fear and say, no, I don't believe this.
What is happening? Something is going on. Can you feel the way?
Hi, welcome to Spiral Into It. I'm Fisk Smith. In this episode, we are going to show interviews with speakers who presented at the 9/11 inquiry in San Francisco at the Herbst Theater on March 26th through March 28th, 2004. September 11th, 2001 is the most important date in our country's history, because it is becoming increasingly clear that the official story of what happened on that date is far from the truth. In this series of shows, we intend to demonstrate through the voices of the 9/11 presenters how so many unrelated events are related, and the bigger picture is something much more sinister than most Americans will be able to handle. The first World Trade Center bombing, the bombings in Oklahoma City, and the events of 9/11 are all related. These events have effectively conditioned Americans to believe that government and more of its oppressive legislation is the only way to protect them from more terrorism. In the coming years, our oil industry policies will begin to reveal widespread destruction. These short-range, greedy, irresponsible policies will begin to unfold generations of famine, refugee migration, weather irregularities, economic disruptions, resource and gene wars on an unsuspecting public confused by the real issues. The powers that be know it is imperative to have broad-ranging legislative mechanisms in place to deal with these catastrophic events and to control its citizens and the anarchy that will follow. 9/11 was the linchpin of this public conditioning. So many questions about that day have not been addressed. The 9/11 Commission, the media, and all the branches of government are complicit in keeping this out of the public debate. Fighting terrorism has nothing to do with sustaining freedom. It has everything to do with creating more wealth for military corporations and Wall Street. It has everything to do with curtailing your freedom and conditioning the truth out of everybody on this planet. The time has come for people to demand truth, to look into the eyes of fear and say, no, I don't believe this. Take back common sense instead of fostering a world of us against them. We are them, and they are us. What is happening? Something is going on. Can you feel the weight?
My father was a progressive clergy person. Remember the United Church of Canada, which combined 3 different denominations in 1925. So I was raised in an ecumenical, politically progressive household. My dad was always for peace, all through the Cold War. That cost him. And I've watched my whole life this wonderful country, and I do mean wonderful country. I am not anti-American, but what I've watched is the American government, especially the military-industrial complex, it was called even by Dwight Eisenhower, which I think has become the military academic industrial media complex, MAME. And I've watched that grow like a cancer my whole life. And I'm thinking now, and I'm seeing now, and I'm feeling now that maybe this gigantic, corrupt, death-dealing, cancerous shadow government, we've learned it is, of elements of like such as the Pentagon, the CIA, and all the alphabets, that they have gone so far along the lines of hypocrisy. They have gone so far along the lines of deception. They have gone so far along the lines of destroying the earth and robbing the resources of the earth that it actually can't be sustained much longer. And it wouldn't matter if this corruption was in a fascist government, a communist government, a socialist government, a marvelous democratic government. This can't go on. It is quite beyond the particular social and political system that we may have established or that may be in existence. It can't go on. Something's got to give. The pillars of corruption and deception really are so top-heavy and so extravagant that I think they're going to fall. Our job is to help this diseased, corrupt, death-dealing system to itself die, which I believe is its own secret death wish. I've been studying a great deal about Hitler and the Third Reich. And in the marvelous 2-volume series by the British historian Ian Kershaw, he points out Hitler ordered more and more of his henchmen to engage in ever more bloody murder, like just summarily executing prisoners of war. He was the mastermind of murder. And then Himmler and Göring and all the rest, and you know, I was just following orders all the way down the line. And as these guys murdered more and more people, then they felt impelled to murder more and more. Because the bloodier their hands were, they intuited that the closer they're getting to, if this ever blows up in our face, we are going to be behind bars or worse, which in fact finally happened. The more that you engage in bloody murder, then the more you are freed to engage in more bloody murder, and in fact you have to. It's like people who rape a woman and then kill her so she can't talk. And they are raping the earth. If you make a person fearful, they're probably going to be easier to manipulate. Same with populations. And the rulers know this, and they use fear to make populations malleable. Again, Hitler did it, and there are many ways to do it. One, and the most common one, is to say there's an external enemy who's threatening us. So all during the Cold War, all during my life, it was always communists. I never figured communists were really actually that dangerous. You see? And it turns out that no communist ever landed on Canadian or U.S. territory with a gun with a gun. It was all a great big sham, essentially. I'm not saying there aren't differences between capitalism and communism. So sure, there can be combat in the arena of ideas. Yeah. Terrific. But as far as Russia actually being an evil empire that wanted to kill us, that wanted to bomb us, that wanted to come in and rape our mothers and sisters and wives, which, you know, that was the reality that we lived through. I lived through most of my life. No, that was never on. I never believed it. I never ever believed it. And if you look at articles in Scientific American and elsewhere, it wasn't an arms race between USA and the USSR. It was an arms chase, which the USA led every step of the way. All the new weapon systems, then the Russians had to catch up. New Trident submarines, then the Russians had to catch up. MIRV rockets, then they had to catch up. It was an arms chase. And so that I have been aware for a long time that we live in a world of illusion, that there's a lot that's cooked up behind the scenes, that we are being manipulated. When you come to these three terrorist events, they do, I think each of them is suspicious in its own right. But one thing it does is to cause the population to be uneasy at the least, and a fearful population will be more likely to be willing to trade off some of its liberties and privileges for more security.